Welcome to the VP Culture. We're going to be studying culture science, and this is lesson number 8. VP Culture is the place where we learn to value all people and to be valued. And this lesson, number 8, is going to be focusing on valuing the past, present, and the future. These are 3 dimensions of the individual that help round us out into valuing the whole person. So we'll look at how this dynamic fits into valuing people as leaders and as teammates. So the past, present, and future are really the elements of time. And these 3 areas are the key for developing our valuing principles for all people. And there are 3 categories of sciences that we're going to develop in each one of these as well. So let's look at these individually. The past, being known. So imagine you're with, a really old friend from high school or something like that. You go way back. There's a deep connection with people that you've known for a really long time. You feel known and understood. Those relationships are kind of irreplaceable. And so you have an immediate connection with somebody who's known you for a long time, known you from your past until your present. And unfortunately, when you come into a job, you can't always know this person forever. And so what we deploy is personality science. And personality science clues you into the key dimensions of understanding a human being. Gives you different categories to be able to parse out, who is this person? Are they going to be more prone to worry? Are they going to see the dangers in life? Are they going to see the opportunities in life? Are they going to be a people pleaser or somebody who's going to take control? Are they going to be somebody who is always looking for new ideas, who's really content with the same ideas over and over again? These are all the different places of personality that you really get to know somebody. This is who they've been from the past until now, all based on personality science. And most leaders don't even know themselves, let alone knowing other people. So this is really going to help you to value yourself and to value others in a deep way. So let's look at the next level, the present. This is where we're talking about being emotionally engaged with others. Okay, so emotional engagement is when we connect in the present. So we all speak 2 languages. We didn't know that. We all speak English in this world, if you're listening to this in English. And we also speak the language of emotions. And the language of emotions connects us and speaks to us about what we think is important, what we value, how we feel about things. And when we don't connect, when the other person that we're speaking to doesn't get what we're saying emotionally, or even is oppositional to our emotional standpoint, we feel disconnected. You don't feel known and understood. You don't feel appreciated. It's a very powerful tool that we have to connect over. And the leaders that can do this lead with the number 1 tool that binds teams together. So it's a very powerful tool for success on the team level of having leaders that can do emotional engagement in the present. So it's highly significant in helping people feel valued in the present. And that's why we use emotional science. Okay, and emotional science gives you the clues on how to focus the attention of the other, how to first do focus together, and then maybe focus more broadly apart. It gives you the tools as what exactly is an emotion. So it's not just overwhelming you. It's not this unnamed, unidentified blob out there that you don't understand. It gives you the tools to become one of those engaged leaders that can do emotional connection in the present. All right, that moves us into the future where we have a shared vision with others. What does our future look like together? Are we going in the same place? And most critically, why are we doing it? So when those things become clear and you give a clear matrix on how to do that, you're going to enter into this world of what we call value science. You can start moving people together in a common direction because you've given them the language and the way to be able to parse out, how is this job that we're doing together fit into our common values? How does this place that we're going actually look like a value and not just a commodity, not just a goal? See, values are something that we go towards forever. You never arrive at peace, you just keep creating it. Whereas you might arrive at a finished product and go, okay, now what's next? But pieces and the values of trust and nobility and joy are things that you just keep leading yourselves towards. And the people that live their lives towards these type of values and understand that Their why becomes very powerful for life. They know why they're living their life. It's not just to create the little object, it's for something so much grander. And these people don't run out of steam. They don't burn out. So this is the number one thing that reduces burnout, because people can keep going towards values because they feel valued. Their life feels valuable. So value science is a very powerful tool for every leader to be able to lead people towards this, because most people have never articulated what their values are. They have no idea on how to do values in their life. It's a mystery. So getting these tools will help you value people and help them to feel valued in the future and to where they're going and why. So again, we're going to cover the past, the present, and then the future. So we're moving through these three different dimensions. And when you can do this as a leader and do this with other people, they're going to feel valued and you're going to feel connected in those kind of relationships. And as we said, we're going to bring in these three different aspects of personality science, emotional science, and values science into the equation. So this is past, present, and future, rounding out your ability to really relate to people and those three key dimensions of relational space, so to speak. And we're going to be studying these three different areas in the next major sections of this coursework. This course has been on culture science, the foundational elements that you kind of need to understand as to how culture gets placed together and how you're going to put it together as a team and as a leader. So these are the three sciences that we're going to be focusing on in the next three segments and how they relate to you as individuals. And bottom line, when you can pull this off, people feel valued. When you start working towards these past, present, and future dimensions of each individual, they'll feel valued. So that's what we're looking for, and that is what a really great leader can do. So let's talk a little bit about the science, and then we run again into our friend, the basal ganglia. So when we're dealing with somebody's past, okay, their basal ganglia and their thalamus team up to really filter things through. So it's like this thing here. It traps certain things and then it lets other things pass on through. So somebody has a specific vision of things or can only hear certain things. Ever been in a relationship with somebody like, how can you not see this? It's right there. Or like, have you seen where this object is? And the other person sees it right away and the other person can't see it for the life of them. That's based on predisposed filters in these parts of your brain that shape your personality. So your past has already been set by filters that are deep within the brain. So let's talk about the present. The present is really made up by this thing called the insula, which is inside the interior of the brain, sort of underneath the prefrontal cortex. And it kind of maps out your body and someone else's, what your hypothetical feelings about someone else is. So what you're constantly doing is like looking in the mirror going, dee, 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 and your brain is making a conscious image of how you're feeling and how the other person is feeling. So that's constantly doing. So just as there's language centers in your brain decoding the English, there's a huge center of your brain decoding the emotional value of it. In fact, your right brain is typically more tuned to the emotional side, and then your insula is creating the whole picture and giving it meaning and all of those things, and it connects with the rest of your brain. So being in the present, there's whole portions of your brain that's about being present. So we're going to be activating these things in emotional science. And then when we're looking into the future, the prefrontal cortex, we're looking at areas of the brain that are dedicated towards figuring out what our values are and creating scenarios for the future. This is a very powerful part of our brain. And when it's activated in a place where we feel valued, you could start creating new reasons for why you're doing things and get a hold of what it means to really live a life that is something that you could do forever. Remember that eternity question that we did? It's all about being able to create and tap into those values that you could do forever. How do we value people? We've got a matrix and an intentional methodology that most leaders don't have. I believe that values find you. So you have to understand what the world of values looks like to be able to map it out so that your brain can make sense of it. So that's what we're going to be doing for the future you and your future team, is bringing you together with common language and common understanding so you can intentionally set forth into the future. So let's talk about some stories. So there was a student who had graduated from a very prestigious university, And this student had a kind of a quirky personality. He was known in his class for being imaginative and a little bit eccentric and kind of a rule breaker. Okay. And so he was, after he graduated, he had his degree in physics, and he wanted to start teaching in physics. And so what did he do? So he started to apply at different universities. At first he got rejection letters, but then he didn't just sit still. He wrote some massive papers, and he sent them off to other universities and scientific journals to be published. And people were looking at them. And he actually got a notice from this one very prestigious university in Europe. And he applied to this university. And the professor brought him in. He visited the professor, and the professor was interviewing him, looking over his papers. And he's like, these papers are very theoretical. They're kind of out there. Because this guy was trying to describe how the entire universe worked together. And he's like, this is a big task. How do you plan on proving any of this? And the student was really excited and adamant. He said, I've got these concepts. I know that my intuition is correct here. I have this vision of how things fit together. I mean, I like imagine them happening in my mind, and I do these mental exercises. I know it's real. And the professor said, that sounds more like art than science. You'd really be better off going to some sort of art school or theater or something like that. But I'm sorry, we just can't give you this job because your personality just doesn't fit with this. And what that professor didn't realize was that he was talking to none other than Albert Einstein, the man that will go on to change the world of physics and science forever. He'll be synonymous with genius. But this professor just couldn't see it because his personality didn't meet what he thought was typical for a university professor. And so he missed it. So knowing the personality of who you're talking to is going to be critical so that you can really feel known and understood, because Albert Einstein didn't feel known and understood by those who were trying to mentor him and trying to bring him into the next level of his work. And now, emotional engagement. Now, this is a quick story about a guy named Mark O'Leary. And I don't know if you can see this on the slide here. Mark he's missing all of his fingers. And Mark was burned over 95% of his body in a tragic accident when he was a kid. And this accident left him with like a 0.5% of living, according to the doctors. They said, Mark is just not going to make it. There's almost no chance. And their family didn't give up on him, but somebody else didn't give up on him too. There was another guy named Jack Buck in St. Louis, not far from where Mark grew up. There was Busch Stadium where the Cardinals played every year. And Jack was the announcer that had been there for years. And Jack heard about Mark's plight. And he came over and he visited him. And he gave him encouragement in his voice, that announcer voice. The little young boy heard it and was so excited. And every day he says, he said to him, Mark, I'm going to give you a new ball every day, every week, rather, signed by one of the players. And if you hang on, we'll just keep giving you another ball and another ball. And that kid, he hung on because of the emotional connection that Jack Buck had given to this young boy. And now this is him as a grown man, 20, 30 years later. And he goes around as a public speaker talking about how that emotional connection changed his life and helped him to live. Because somebody saw his work as being bigger than just an announcer, but as somebody who had to go out and make a difference in the world. And that brings us to the last point. Jack Buck had values that went beyond. Values like Martin Luther King that pervaded his work. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. was a visionary in what he did, but it cost him. See, he didn't just give up on hey, we're going to have this task and we're going to get this task done. Sure, he was focused on getting civil rights changed in the United States. That was a goal. But there was something much deeper than, because he's gone now. He's dead. But we still admire and follow where he led back then. Because why? He was leading to some deep values of equality, of trust, that we could trust one another again, that we could create peace together, that we can work for noble causes in our life, and that we don't have to be pushy. We just need to value each other. He used his faith where he believed that you pray for your enemies and you care for them, and all of that valuing of others will make people want to go where you're going, because everyone actually wants to go towards a life of values. And when you live that out, people will continue to follow you for generations after just hearing your story and your life about values. So that's what we want to do, is give you, each person, a vision of the future that's built on that kind of values-based environment. And we're going to break down what those values are so you can see them more clearly and build your life on them more clearly. So now we're going to jump into some questions. We've got 3 discussion questions that we're going to be working on here. So let's put them up on the board. Number 1, how do you feel when you see an old friend that you haven't seen for a long time? What's that like? Discuss that question. Question number 2, who do you know that is good at connecting with people, and how do they affect others? Discuss that question. And then question number 3, have you ever made future plans to change your life in a positive way? How did that feel? All right, that brings us to the end of this section of culture science. We're going to be valuing people's past, present, and future, and these 3 dimensions come together to build a dynamic way of caring and valuing for others. It engages personality science, it engages emotional science, and it engages values science. Those are the 3 modules we'll be moving into, and when that's done in those 3 dimensions, people feel valued. So thanks for listening on this segment of our quest towards building a values-based culture, a valuing people culture, and culture science. This was lesson number 8, and we look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.